$13.75 million, the largest deal of my career. And everybody told me that deal wasn't going to close. If you give me the same seller, one goes into a group Zoom class with one of the most popular programs, and then one sits down with me for hours at a time, I feel confident I'm going to win and they're going to get better results every single time. He had just become an AE, never closed the deal before. We started working together in March, and just a couple weeks ago, we got signature on a $1.7 million deal that he cold called off of.
All right, welcome back to the SDR Hire podcast. If you're new here, my name is Stefan, and all we do is talk about sales, SDR, appointment setting, closing, account executives, tech sales, and anything in sales in general, like hiring and training and stuff like that. And so without further ado, after almost 2 years, actually it's been 2.5 years, I'm talking again with a guy called Brandon Clauser. So Brandon started actually washing dishes for like $7.50 an hour and, sleeping on his friend's couch. And through sheer commitment and like grit, he found his way into tech sales. Fast forward to like these days, he's closed over 27 million, if I'm not mistaken, on behalf of some of the biggest tech sales companies out there, like Salesforce, Asana, Workday. And so today, right now, Brandon is actually using his background and experience to coach other enterprise sales reps, usually one-on-one, on how to achieve the same. And so, dude, welcome to the show, man. It's been a minute.
Yeah, thanks, brother. I'm so glad to be back. It's funny how much can change in a couple of years, huh?
Exactly. And I don't even feel like it's been a couple of years, but like, what has changed from that moment? Like you were literally transitioning from Asana to Workday. I think it was February 2023 when we did this. And so what transpired from then to now to you opening up your coaching business versus like just staying an enterprise seller?
Yeah, I started at Workday in 2023. I wanted to sell a true enterprise platform. I'd seen a lot of success at Salesforce and got really heavily recruited over to Workday. Had a lot of connections there from people that I'd worked with at Salesforce that wanted me to come on over. So I went to Workday, closed out Q4 at Salesforce, and right after I joined Workday, actually, the Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, and I had just bought my first home in San Diego, right? So I put all this money down on my first house. Silicon Valley Bank collapses, and this kind of like golden era that we had been in SaaS completely shifted from like a growth at all costs model to really, how do we cut costs? How do we consolidate? People were just freaking out and really focused on profitability. So that's how my career got off to a start at Workday, basically just sheer panic in the market. But it's really what helped me develop, a lot of the methodologies that I teach today and a lot of the things that I'm teaching today to my sellers on how to sell in this new macroeconomic environment. So I actually went on, shockingly enough, to be a top 10 AE in all of North America in Workday within my first 90 days, really just focusing on working with finance and consolidation and cutting costs, and really developed a lot of what I'm ultimately teaching. So that's really kind of what happened. I went on to have a really great run there. 6 months later, I actually ended up closing the largest deal of my career. It was 13.75 million. And then that's a whole other story. But yeah, man, that's at work. That's kind of how my career got kicked off at Workday in my first year there. It was wild.
It's crazy, man. $13.7 million contract. Like that's insane. That's like true enterprise selling. Like we don't necessarily have to spend too much time on it, but like maybe you can give us just highlights of how that went down. And it only took 6 months. It usually takes significantly longer to close deals of that magnitude. So like, what kind of drove that success? What do you think?
Yeah. So like I said, I just bought my first house. So I put all this money in and nobody was selling anything. And I knew that I had to really change how I was ultimately selling to these accounts to adjust to this new market. So a large part of my book of business was actually like large software companies, right?
Right.
But I had one account in particular that was like an environmental waste cleanup company. So they weren't aligned to this like massive tech recession that we were in. But my manager at the time told me, hey, this account is a massive red flag. It's a CSAT. There's multiple failed implementations that are ultimately going on. I would just stay away from it. But I knew based on the amount of revenue the company was doing and kind of, what my patch was looking like, that I was going to have to get in there and clean things up if I was going to have any shot at hitting my numbers. So they actually had, like I said, a couple of projects that they were working on that didn't end up going so well. So I came in specifically and I met with everybody and I just said, vent to me, what's going on? How can I help you? And they started really just telling me all these different things that were happening. And in doing that, I leaned in and I built relationships with the controller, the CFO, the head of digital enterprise transformation, the whole entire HRIS team, like you name it. I really got to speak with all of these different people around the business. And what I did is I learned their workflows, I learned all the problems that they had, and I really built relationships with them. And even then, I still didn't really see a path to the deal, but I had ultimately like set the stage. So as I started working with them, they weren't really interested in buying any new product, but I was able to ultimately clean things up and get them happy. And I noticed that they had been talking about acquiring a few more small firms that they wanted to grow a little bit through mergers and acquisitions. And so what I actually started to do was look at their current pricing structure and model out, okay, if they continue on this growth rate, right? If they continue to acquire these smaller companies, and based on all of the problems that I kind of found that I could ultimately solve, like I built out a projection and a really big spreadsheet of how much they would ultimately be spending over the next 5 years, right? And it turns out it would be around $17 million that they were going to be spending over the next 5 years. So before I sold anything, I just validated all of the numbers with the CFO. Like I really leaned in with him. I built out a spreadsheet with dynamic pricing fields so that they could model out what the growth looks like and so that they felt comfortable with the numbers. And that process was pretty extensive. But once we were able to do that and work with the head of, digital transformation and the CFO, and once they felt really, really good about the numbers, and I said, hey, like you're going to be spending 17 million over the next 5 years, the CFO literally thanked me. And he was like, Brandon, we had no idea what our total liability was ultimately going to be. Like, thank you for exposing this to me. So we talk a lot about when like accounts say, I'm good, I don't need anything. Like what we have to do is we have to create these points of view. And it was particularly tied to helping them cut costs and consolidate and run more efficiently. So through a lot of negotiation and a lot of headaches, there was multiple obstacles along the deal. My manager told me multiple times it wasn't going to close. Like we got down to like the last week and we had another huge roadblock around a compliance issue. So I was cold calling like CEOs of other companies trying to get them to talk to my client. But anyways, we ended up closing the deal and it was $13.75 million and made me the number one rep for the quarter by far. That was a net new deal because the way we restructured the contract, and it was amazing. So yeah, first quarter, didn't know if I was going to make my mortgage payment, ended up being number one, was, crushed it in Q2 as well. And then Q3 ended up closing the largest deal of my career, probably one of the toughest SaaS markets since, I don't know, like 2008, 2009.
Real quick, if you're a sales leader or you know someone who's looking for support when it comes to cold outreach, cold calling, cold email, LinkedIn outreach, we build SDR and BDR teams for companies or complement their existing teams with top talent, remote SDRs and BDRs that are exceptional in outreach skills. So if you'd like to get in touch, just visit sdrhire.com and book a call with our team. All right, back to the show. So just to recap a little bit, basically what you did, and this is a little bit overgeneralizing, but still, what you essentially did is created relationships, really multi-threaded, and like you went into literally every single department there is that has any contact with your piece of software, and then created relationships there, but then essentially aligned your product. It's not like they bought your product, they bought the outcome and like the insights that you were actually able to generate through that process, but you were able to really talk into their ear because you created those relationships. And so all of that blended together led to like a almost $14 million outcome. So
yeah.
Like, does that kind of fairly?
I think a couple things I would add, right? Big problems equal big money. And I think a lot of a lot of sellers, they don't lean into the big problems. So when I look at my account list and when I talk to my clients, I encourage them to really analyze their accounts in kind of three distinct cycles, right? You have folks that are in the implementation cycle where they're implementing your software. You have people that are in the CSAT cycle where they're pissed off. Then you have people that are in the buying cycle that are willing to invest and expand in the platform. And so I work with them to really say, hey, how do we get these people that are in the CSAT part of the cycle into the buying cycle? And then how do we get them into the implementation cycle and back into the buying cycle? And I really focus, that deal wasn't necessarily about the product. It was about identifying something that was important to the business, which was having the ability to scale as they grew through mergers and acquisitions, and aligning to an initiative that pretty much everybody has right now, which is to become more profitable and cut costs, right? So I sold profitability, I sold scalability, and I map it out in a very digestible way to where a CFO of a publicly traded company was like ultimately thanking me, right? So when I talk to my clients and they talk about the products they're selling, I have what I call like the business value power rankings. At the end of the day, companies are in business because they want to cut costs, increase revenue, drive efficiencies, mitigate risk, become more scalable, and increase speed to market, right? So if you look at any deal, fundamentally, there's going to be elements of that you have to understand and how you ultimately have to sell. So I really shifted my mindset, and I did this a while ago, but I really take the mindset of I'm not selling a product, I'm selling solutions to problems. Let me lean into like the really nasty accounts where there's things that are going bad, because generally they have really bad problems. And if I can solve those problems, I can, make a lot of money in the process. So it doesn't always work like that, but I just really encourage my clients and really sellers as a whole to lean in with your clients, especially if you've identified them as a strategic account, because, that's where the magic can really happen. And then just focus on selling the outcome, right? Cutting costs, driving efficiencies with AI, how you're going to increase revenue, right? Like those are the things that are going to move the needle more than like the features or the benefits or, the magic sauce of your solution.
Beautifully put. And there's, I think, one more thing that you're probably taking, at face value, but a lot of people don't really understand they need to do, which is the amount of volume of activities that you need to do in order to make something like this big happen. You said that you were cold calling CEOs of potential companies to call up on your client, right? And so that is the amount of effort needed to close a $14 million deal, right?
Yeah, I think it's like, yeah, and it's not just about activity, it's about, a strategic approach within one account. So when a lot of people come to me, especially enterprise sellers, like these are my top 20 accounts, these are my top 30 accounts, and it's just flawed. You really have to focus on two, three, four, and place your bets and be willing to go really, really deep, right? And so I think the other thing is that I like to talk about that's important is everybody told me that deal wasn't going to close. I mean, everybody. Like my own management team told me it wasn't going to close. My partners told me it wasn't going to close. The customer told me it wasn't going to. Like literally everybody told me this wasn't going to happen. Like so many different times in the sales cycle. And so I think you have to be relentless and you have to be willing to keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. Because in anything that's worth, anything significant in life, like you're going to really have to fight for it. And so I encourage my clients to really fight for their deals, to continue to push back, to continue to come with new solutions and really define the business value. Because if you're confident that you can save their organization $5 million, if you know for a fact, based on what you quantified earlier in the process, you can help them increase revenue by 10 or 15% or whatever that business outcome is, and you have conviction and you've proved that, and you can show that in the demo, then when it gets time to go to pricing, you should have a pretty good understanding of, okay, yes, this cost, 13 million, but what's you were going to spend 17 million. So as long as you have, right, that type of kind of problem statement and you're able to solve for that, you can see a lot of success. And that's what I'm trying to get more and more people to focus on.
Understood. Interesting. I have a couple of questions in mind, but how do you actually make a decision where to focus, right? Because all of your accounts might pan out good or bad, right? And so how do you place that bet on 3, 4, 5 accounts versus the other 20?
There's a lot of different things that I really look at. I think one of the things that I've been working with my clients on now is like history repeats itself, right?
Right.
So if you have a client that hasn't purchased from you in 4 years, like they're probably not going to buy from you. That doesn't mean you shouldn't spend time on that account, but it's just something to be aware of, right? I also look at the industry they're in and the business model, and I see, is there really a strong fit here? And do I have a strong point of view or use case on how I can ultimately help their business? And then I think the other thing is you just have to get into the accounts and really talk to people, right? Like AI is great, reading a 10K is great, placing your bets is great. But at the end of the day, the best discovery you can do is getting in the trenches and having conversations with people that are actually in the business to understand what's happening, what they're focused on. Because who knows, they might be about to acquire a massive company, right? Or they might be laying off a whole bunch of their staff, or their CEO might have announced an initiative where they have to get to profitability no matter what. Like I had an account like that early in Q1 of the year where they were like an online retailer. They were selling like luxury consignment goods, right? So I had to come to them and just basically help them consolidate all their software. So I think it's a combination of just like using your brain, doing the research, trying to figure out where you'll ultimately be a good fit. Yes, you need to use some of the resources available to you publicly, like the 10Ks and things like that. But really, the best way to form your opinion on what accounts are going to be good is just getting in there and understanding as much as you possibly can about what they're focused on and what's happening in the business. And so I kind of take all of that data, I combine it with kind of where I think the industry is going, right? Like I wasn't going to place a lot of big bets in tech when tech was laying everybody off. But I'm like, okay,
Mm.
this account is an environmental waste cleanup company, right? Well, okay, like they're not aligned to the market and their revenues are growing. Like maybe I should focus here. So I think it's just really a combination of those things
Right.
and just, having good instincts in terms of like where you want to place your bets.
Okay. I love that. Cool. And this is a good segue into what you're doing currently, which is essentially what you did. You learned all of these things. You kind of, you managed to kind of crack the code and understand how to essentially be a top performing enterprise seller, which is, and you've obviously demonstrated with all of the millions that you were able to close. And now, what are you doing today?
Yeah, so I launched a coaching business, one-on-one coaching business focused specifically on helping people, close more deals, increase pipeline, and ultimately be high-performing enterprise salespeople. I saw a massive gap in the marketplace where a lot of these SaaS gurus now, right, they sold in the growth at all costs era. They sold in like 2015, 2017, 2019, where there was literally people like coming off the streets and making $500,000 a year in software. And so a lot of the things that they're teaching the day to these people are really like old recycled playbooks, and they're not designed and they're not tailored. They're not focused on the individual or in the marketplace that we're in today. And I think that's really resonating, and the market is speaking, and my business is exploding because number one, people want personalized custom, right? Because no matter what I did at any of these organizations, every single product is different, every individual seller is different, their account list is different, they have different strengths, they have different weaknesses, they have different things that they want to focus on. And so I really sit down just to understand like what their goals are, right? What's driving that goal, what's holding them back, what are the things they have tried, and kind of work with them to create custom solutions and custom coaching based on that. And I've been able to achieve some really cool things. I just had my client Mikey closed a $2.6 million deal. I think the one I'm most proud of, brother, is I took a Workday seller, 26 years old. He had just become an AE, never closed the deal before. We started working together in March, and just a couple weeks ago, we got signature on a $1.7 million deal that he cold called off of, that we use the framework. So I got to take this guy and really hold his hand from like A to Z through the whole sales cycle and see the big result. And that's when I was like blown away, because I was like,
Mm.
wow, like I have the ability to help this young generation close these deals. And a lot of the things that I was teaching him, he wasn't getting from his management team. And a lot of people aren't getting that support. So they're coming to me looking for kind of outside guidance and help to kind of take that next step in their career.
Yeah. What like what is the usual situation that they find themselves in when, or rather, that triggers them to come to you? Like, are they, scared that they're gonna get fired and then they like need help, or are they just actively being very, diligent and are like, okay, I need coaching, I need somebody to hold my hand as I grow into this role? What's the usual that you see?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of things, right? Like some people come when they're getting their first enterprise AE role. I've been working more and more with a lot of seasoned enterprise sellers that, that want to help me strategize to get their deals across the line. It's really kind of a combination, and it's based on whatever that they ultimately want to focus on, right? So
Right.
I'd say it's just like a combination of all of those different things. But yes, I mean, usually they're not getting the appropriate skills taught to them by management, because the managers are really bogged down by the way these corporations are set up, right? They have
Mm.
CRM updates they have to do. They have to do reporting. They have like 7 or 8 reps. They're working 10 or 12 hours a day. And so the one-on-ones are focused on that and not necessarily skill development. So they go into the marketplace trying to get skill development, and they have these like courses, they have like
That's
pre-recorded
right.
libraries, they have these big, Zoom cohort classes with like 40, 50 people that they're teaching the same thing to everybody, and they just like stop showing up for the calls. And so I think that's why the business is growing so fast, is because we're saying, hey, sit down with me one-on-one. We'll map out your territory. We'll map out accounts. I'll get to know you on a personal basis, and we'll create a
Mhm.
custom plan that's ultimately going to help.
That's what I was gonna ask. What is making your business and your consulting practice different compared to what's out there? And it seems like it's one really deep customization and focus on like one-on-one approach. And I think I read one of your LinkedIn posts where you were like outlining the difference, where you essentially are available even at 9 p.m., which we all know that who work in sales, like there's like literally every part of the day you can get an email or a text that you need to really respond to. So that's I guess one thing, right? And then it seems you keep mentioning a methodology. Like, is there a structured approach to all of this, or do you literally customize every single engagement differently based on the client?
Yeah, everything is custom, right? I have kind of core things that I teach. I don't have like, I'm not teaching like a specific methodology like Sandler or something like that. It really is kind
Mm-hmm.
of tailored to them. But I do teach kind of some concepts that work across enterprise selling as a whole. And then what makes my practice is I am all in with my clients. So from the moment that they start working with me until they're done working with me, it's not like they just hop on a call with me for 30 minutes every couple of weeks, right? We meet multiple times a week. They have me on WhatsApp. They're asking me questions. They're bringing me ideas, whether it's sometimes they're struggling with mindset. They're having a rough day. Sometimes they're deep in a deal and it's 11 o'clock at night and we're strategizing. And so I think that's why I'm really revolutionizing the one-on-one spaces, because I'm completely dedicated to them. And when they're working with me, I only do 90 days at a time. It's a
Yeah.
full immersion, right, of like one-on-one support. And ultimately it drives really big results and really big deals and more renewals. So that's what I'm doing. What they're used to is like meeting with the coach who locks them into a long-term contract, right? They get to meet with them for an hour basically once a month, and then sit on a
Yeah.
cohort class. And it's just like not
Uh-huh.
custom, it's not tailored to them. And then even a lot of those coaches that call themselves one-on-one coaches, they teach frameworks. They coach off of slides, right? So they just recycle the same content over and over again. Where really with my clients, almost every single call is completely different.
Right. Okay, so you work with them on a 90-day basis, and then I guess like I mean, how is that even structured? Like, do you have an outcome in mind where you kind of help them reach that goal, or is it more like continuous coaching and like renewing every 90 days? What?
Yeah, it's a combination. Of course, there's always an outcome in mind, right? That's why I really focus on what their goal is and what's driving
Right.
that and what they've tried and what's holding them back. And then I really tailor it to that
Right.
specifically. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think everything's different. Everybody has a specific goal that they're trying to accomplish. And then it varies, If you're all in with me, like, and we're, working together for 90 days, I'm going to be able to drive results for you that you couldn't get in a year or 2 years in the
Yeah.
traditional kind of coaching model, right? So that's where the magic is.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I mean, we all pay for coaching because that's what you want. You want to like squeeze the time frame of like 2 years into like 90 days or maybe 6 months, right? I love that. And it seems like you're really making huge strides. Like, do you have like situations where you turn somebody down? Like, because I can assume, obviously, you work one on one, your time is limited, it's very customized. And so you can't really onboard 300 people, right? And so, what are some of the criteria that you use to disqualify people?
Yeah, well, I only work with a given set of clients at any time. So people ask me, how are you going to scale? How are you going to scale? I'm the
Yeah,
anti-scaler, right? Like I don't want to scale these massive businesses and funnel people in and just hold up Inc. 5000 plaques and kind of, I'm
yeah,
taking the complete contrarian approach to that. So I have a set amount of clients that I work with at any given month. And then really, if they're a good fit, if we decide that I can help them, then I'll start working with them or I'll put them on the wait list for next month. And then I just kind of have to maneuver around that. Right. And I think the business now is taking off to where we are. And I am kind of, I only have a couple slots left for October, but I have a whole bunch more people waiting in November. So yeah, that's how I run it. And to me, right, I'm not trying to build this massive, huge coaching business. I'm trying to make enough money to live a good lifestyle, to support my family, to be able to work with people one on one, and that's okay. That's good enough for me.
yeah. That's beautiful. There's like grace in just like doing enough without really those ambitious goals where, and it's like more, it's popular, it's very trendy to like, shoot for for the moon and the stars and like $100 million businesses. I like that approach. I like, because you actually then can keep the quality extremely high, which allows you to work one-on-one, which allows you to not have to go towards the cohort based business. And it seems like you really are passionate about like expressing your opinion against the cohort type of business. And like what's kind of the narrative and the attitude that you have towards these types of businesses? I've seen your post on LinkedIn, and you keep mentioning cohort based businesses and scams and stuff like that. Like what's going on there?
Yeah, well, all of these individuals, right? They run the exact same business model where it's like make 500,000 to $1 million a year, just pay us, $9,000, $6,000, $12,000. And then, like I said, they basically have built it for scale and they just funnel you into these massive Zoom groups with a lot of cookie cutter material. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because client after client after client has been coming to me and being like, it didn't work out for me. I feel like I got ripped off. It wasn't tailored to me. They told me it was going to be one-on-one coaching, but it was only 15 minutes at a time, right? And so they create these massive funnels. They present themselves as these sales gods based on results they got like 7 years ago that aren't even really relevant to this market. And then these naive people who want to get better, who really want to invest in themselves, they get taken for 10 grand, 6 grand at a time. And so the reason that I'm really fired up about it is because somebody had to stand up and like say something, right? They all support each other. They stand on their moral high horse and nobody really stands up to them and says, hey, this is not okay. And I think that's why the movement to like kill the cohorts and protect the sellers and expose the industry is resonating with so many people, because nobody could really say it because they're stuck in corporate jobs, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like we're the silent majority that's rising up and saying, hey man, enough is enough. And particularly my generation of people, they're used to having the next generation punch down on them, right? Like they're locked into the VP roles. They were able to kind of really take advantage of a massive market from 2010 to 2020 and build their careers and like print a lot of cash. And now we're just kind of like stuck behind them. And so not only am I saying, hey, enough with the cohort nonsense, but I'm encouraging my generation to rise up and speak up and say, we're not going to stand for this anymore. We're the leaders. And I'm really kind of claiming the next generation of sellers and saying, I'm the new face of B2B tech sales, because it's truly what I believe. And if I can help people from not getting taken advantage of, and I can work with them on a one-to-one basis, or even if I can just show them to be yourself, right? My content is so polarizing because I don't have any fear anymore. I have complete
Yeah,
freedom to express how
yeah,
I feel. And I feel like people want that. They want to be able to express how they feel, but they're literally terrified to even like a post because of the
yeah.
potential consequences that they might receive from their employers. So it's
Right.
more than just a marketing campaign. I think it's a movement behind really, freedom and being able to talk about what you want and standing up to the people that are taking advantage of the next generation and saying, we've had enough.
Mm. Interesting. I'm not really that big, especially into the enterprise sales, like coaching community. I really like have no touch points with that particular part of the market, but I have seen a lot of different coaching businesses. There's anything from like low ticket courses that you can obviously consume. And like personally, I buy everything that I come across and I learn from each of those courses that I potentially consume. I learned something, right? And none of them are like exactly what I need, but I just take the pieces and kind of put it together for my own use and obviously for my own business, right? And so I've been viewing coaching in the same manner, right? So obviously you can learn this from this person, this from that person. I haven't been a part of this type of community, right? Cohort based coaching, something like that. Like, how does that actually usually work? Like, from what you've heard from your clients, what's kind of the usual structure of those engagements? You keep mentioning 12 months, like a bunch of people, 40, 50 people, somewhat infrequent coaching sessions. Like, what is and it seems like the only thing that, because I don't see anything wrong with that, but it seems like it's misleading that people are being said, hey, you will get one-on-one, you will get a lot of support, and then they don't. Is that kind of what's going on?
100%. I just made a video from a client who was promised that today. We're like, oh, we're going to coach you one on one just to win the business, and he didn't get he didn't get the one on one coaching, and when he did, it was like office hours for 15 minutes. And it's like I'm getting message after message with these similar stories, and I'm exposing all these things in the industry which are shocking to me. And then once you start to dig into it, you start to see that all the people at the top, they like each other's posts, they run at the same
Yeah.
events, they all support each other, and you start to see, oh wow, I see what's ultimately happening here.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the cohort model, so a lot of them will run Instagram ads now. They dump a lot of money into Instagram ads, and they run these really large email newsletters, like through like ClickFunnels campaigns, right? Like buy now or sign now or enter your email address. And then they get put in from what I understand, a bi-weekly Zoom call. So they meet
Mm-hmm.
like once a week or every other week. They get put in a big group Slack thread. And then sometimes it's like combined with a course, but it's not tailored to them or their product. And like I said, it's usually from 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, a lot of the things that they're ultimately learning. And so the sellers feel overwhelmed. They feel like it's not custom to them. And not everybody. I'm sure there's some people that get value. I'm just telling you what I'm
Sure.
hearing from people that are
Yeah.
coming to
Yeah.
me. And they're saying, I need a true custom tailored approach because I didn't get the value that I was supposed to get. And, $10,000 or $12,000 is a significant amount of money
Exactly.
to just sit on a call with like 40 other people, right? So
Yeah.
that's why we're changing the game. And that's why we're creating the cohort killer movement and this big, putting this big emphasis on one coaching. And it's like, look, I would love for people to work with me, right? But I think I'm more so encouraging them to do your research, right? And even on the one-on-one stuff, do your research there. Like, do you want to spend $20,000? Do you want to spend $30,000 on a one-on-one coach? Like, that is insane. So really make sure that you're ultimately going to get the value out of it, right? The market speaks. That's the beauty of this, right? The market will reward or it will deny. And right now, the market's denying the cohorts and they're rewarding one on one coaching. And I'm actually getting messages from other coaches and consultants like that are admitting that they have run their cohorts, like multiple.
Really
Doesn't work. People stop showing
interesting.
up and they're like, I'm going to change my coaching model to one on one, Brandon. Thank you for inspiring me, right? So in the industry, it's either met with violent opposition or people are saying, wow, Brandon's
Aligning.
onto something here and they know that I'm right and they can't live with it. And so they're moving their business to a one on one model. And I really think that's the future of coaching. And I think we're going to start to see more and more of these cohorts get exposed and more of them start to crumble as a lot more details come out because there is a lot of people that when the SaaS
Yeah.
market was going crazy and the sales coaching business was exploding that got taken advantage of or really just bought into it because they were able to get it reimbursed by their organization, and that's all stopped now.
Yeah. I mean, so many topics that we can kind of go into, and I know that you have a hard stop in 10, and I'm just thinking because I consume a lot of content created by different coaches, different coaching businesses, not necessarily in the tech sales space. Honestly, I love some of those guys. Like if we call them gurus, that's fine, but like. Mm, and they actually have cohort based businesses and they're actually working, and so and they have extremely good results for people that they give them. And so for example, Jeremy Haynes, he's a let's call him a marketing or whatever. He worked with Grant Cardone. He built a huge like marketing agency, which is where he's applying all of the knowledge that he has about marketing, and he's growing huge businesses, right? Like info coaching type of businesses. And then on the other hand, he has an education company, and he keeps saying it's an education company, not like a coaching business where I scam you out of $300 or like whatever. Sorry, course business. And so, for example, that guy I think he's running like a cohort based business or somewhere around there. My point is, there are types of businesses that are actually doing well. And I think it does kind of come down to like, what are you actually teaching people, right? And then how are you managing the expectations? Because it seems like what's missing here is like too many people in cohorts being taught things that used to work and are not aligned with the current market, which I think is one of your biggest selling points right now, based on what I'm hearing. And then like they are being like hard sold and
Yeah,
really
high pressure
pushed and
sales
pressure
tactics. Yeah.
exactly into like buying this instead of
Hmm.
like and it, like I feel like I want to buy your coaching, right? Because it's like you're just like, hey, these are all the slots that I have more than enough people coming in. I have $1 million run rate. It's like, you don't necessarily like you give off a vibe of like, I don't need your money, but let me help you if I can. And that, I think that is the beautiful thing. I mean, would you agree? What do you think about this?
Look, I think there's some things that at a high level you can learn good information. You can
Mm,
learn some things and maybe apply some things. I'm not saying that like you're not going to get anything from it. I'm just saying that if you want to really achieve true transformation in anything that you're doing in life, whether it's running a business or getting in the best shape of your life or becoming a top enterprise seller, true one on one tailored approaches are always going to run laps around people that are
yeah,
doing group based coaching. That's all I'm trying to say. And then,
yeah,
you
makes
know,
sense.
you can decide and do your research if you want to work with those people. I think the reason I'm so passionate about it is because the market's coming to me and they're DMing me and I'm having calls with these people that they're so afraid to invest in themselves because they felt like they have already taken advantage of. So a lot of these
Yeah,
people I'm working with, right, they're having like PTSD because they're
yeah,
so afraid that like it's not going to work out again. And so, you know, that's kind of my philosophy is, hey, if you want to go pay 10 grand to sit in a group Zoom, good for you. And hopefully it's valuable for you. And I really hope you get your ROI. But
yeah,
I truly believe that a one-on-one approach will always win. Like if you give me the same seller, one goes into a group Zoom class with one of the most popular programs, right? And then one sits down with me for hours at a time, looking through deals, building a strategy, going back and forth in WhatsApp, I feel confident I'm going to win and they're going to get better results every single time. And I'm going to get
understood.
those results in 90 days. It's not going to take me a year.
Yeah, makes sense. I love that, man. Cool. So as we approach the end of the conversation, like, is there like a message other than what you've shared so far? Anything that you would like to kind of leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think like it's okay to be yourself. I encourage people to just be their self and don't be afraid to speak up for what you believe in, right? Don't feel like you're silenced by these corporations. And guess what? Like if you're in a bad situation or you feel like it's toxic, like you can always leave, right? I think we've been so conditioned to not speak up and to not really be ourselves that everybody talks the same, they sound the same, and that's why LinkedIn is so boring. And that's why our movement is so strong because all I'm doing is getting on the platform and I'm unapologetically being myself, trying to help people from getting taken advantage of and hopefully providing a lot of value as well. And I've been getting, it's been really cool, right? Because I had a conversation with one of my old mentors the other day and he's like, Brandon, I've mentored you a lot, but right now you're mentoring me. I've had all these fears, I've had all this anxiety about like launching my business. And what you're doing is just so bold and brave. And it's really going to inspire me to take that next step. And I've been having my clients come to me like, you know what, Brandon, like, if you can do it, I can do it. Like, I'm going to start posting on LinkedIn. And then people are coming forward and like sharing their story. So that's my message is this is America. It's okay to speak your mind. It's okay to have an opinion. Like you can share what you believe in. And if somebody is going to punish you for sharing that, or, they're going to say, hey, you can't do that. You can't talk about that, or you can't post that, or you can't like that. Like, it's okay for you to leave. You can start your own business and you can go do something where you feel a lot more fulfilled. So I think at high level, like, that's my biggest message.
It's a strong message. It's a timely message, especially these days, considering everything that's going on in the United States as well as in the rest of the world. And so I really resonate with that. All right, cool. Well, I really enjoyed talking about this. And, even though it might be a controversial topic, I am positive. Like, we've all seen terrible like coaching course businesses where we've spent money, we haven't gotten anything in return, and obviously that little bit of PTSD starts to develop. And obviously the more money you've spent, the stronger that feeling becomes. And so I think the movement that you keep referencing is something that's going to catch more and more fire as time goes by. Obviously seeing your results, seeing how the market is reacting to what you're saying, as well as seeing other coaches starting to implement some kind of similar approach to yours. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how this pans out over the next couple of years. And I mean, we should do it. We should do this again. Maybe not 2 years from now, but like, a few months down the road.
It's a movie, man. We'll keep
Sure.
filming it like a Netflix documentary in real time.
I love it, dude. I love it.
All right, brother.
I love it. Thanks for doing this, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thank you so much.